Afternoon, everybody. This is ET Zarish. I'm finally back to discuss this game again, Beyond Earth. Now, it's been a little while since I've been on. If you're a Sith Fanatics fan, you may have seen me on episode 240 of the Polycast, where we discussed things and I had an opinion on Rising Tide. So I'll be doing that video soon as I'm done with this one, which this one is actually covering the rest of Beyond Earth. Now, let's go ahead and go a little bit into the final issue that I was going to discuss last time. So, our last three topics. Actually, it's four. Sorry about that. But, anyways, a map with so many resources, the plus and minus system, the spy system, and unit diversity. Now, let's start with the map. Now, I really don't, as you can probably guess, enjoy the map very much. Let's look a little bit in depth at the map itself and why I don't really enjoy it too much. Now, you have things like Floatstone, and here we have Firaxite, here we have Xenomass. Now, a lot of times you'd watch the developers talk about these various things, and they would say things like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna fight over that," and blah blah blah, and I need to secure this, and then you play the game and you realize you don't really need to. I mean, it is a disadvantage to not have them if it's like your specific affinity and you can't get it right away, but you can trade it still, and it's not something that was like really necessary. And let me just make an explanation in terms of what exactly I'm talking about here now. Now, in Civ 5, you had these luxuries, and these luxuries led to golden ages, and they led to you not having unhappiness, which was a very big problem, right? Especially once you got to -10. So they were something you wanted to get no matter what, and also they can help you generate gold easily. What these do when you get them is, well, not really very much. So you don't get much for them, and they don't help you in terms of your health, which is, this Civ Beyond Earth's version of happiness, health. So, considering all these things, these resources are arguably not that helpful. I mean, sometimes Xenomass can have its key bonuses here and there, but in contrast, the main thing that you have to remember is in contrast to how good luxuries were in Civ 5. They were always a benefit, no matter what. Like, you can have your arguments again, as I said, like, well, you can get units a little bit earlier, like you can get the battle suit for purity if you get the Floatstone early, and that's the strength of the unit that comes in tier 6 instead of tier 4 or whatever you want to call it. But that's always a big if. It's like if you tech the battle suits, if you get the Floatstone technology too. It's a lot of ifs, and they don't have a direct impact in being helpful in any way, shape, or form apart from that, really. So apart from that and the couple buildings that they help you build. So they're not a necessity by any means, and that's okay because they're in a way a strategic resource in my opinion, but they are not providing much. So you don't have things to fight over. What are you going to fight over? Like the one thing I might fight over is maybe titanium, but even that's something you can get around. So I mean, I like the fact that you don't have to fight over everything, and it doesn't have to be like oh my god, I have to get this. But at the same time, it makes for a very, very boring game. And a good point is that it keeps things a little bit more balanced. But if the game is so boring, what's the point of playing it? And that's the problem. You have nothing big that you want to achieve or get. They even included, like, you can see gold here. But that's like one culture. Well, culture is so weak in this 1 or 2 culture. It's not very strong. There's a lot of things that are just not that great on the map. So what's the point? And then you have a massive amount of these craters, and all they ever do is make the 1 UPT problem even worse. I mean, I don't understand. Like, I know you guys are trying to make it sci-fi, and it seems like an issue. It seems like a difficult thing to do. Maybe with this engine, it's a difficult thing to do. But I feel like there has to be a better way than these randomly generated mountains and craters that take up a whole bunch of space quite often and are, to be honest, extremely annoying and get in the way. So I've had a game where I literally was unattackable until the end of the game because I had so many mountains next to me, and it wasn't fun. I enjoy like a good position, a safe position, but there's a limit to that. So there's a lot of clutter with these mountains, and there's nothing to fight for. So what's the point of settling anywhere, really? I mean, You don't get a big bonus no matter where you are. So what's the point of actually, conflict? There's no point. I mean, everybody wins quickly as well, so that makes these small bonuses worth even less. So yeah, these maps are very bland and not interesting in too many ways. All right, next. We look at the end list plus and minuses in the health system. Now, the health system, the issue with it is, as you can see here, is it scales slowly. From 0 to 50, you get a city growth penalty and outpost growth. Honestly, this is beneficial in some ways because you keep expanding and then you get negative health, right? So you don't want your outposts to grow. So in the way that it stops your outposts from growing, it's actually helping you in a weird way. Now, obviously, that extra food could be used you could take off a tile and put a food tile onto a production tile, but this is really not that bad. And then culture from 5 to 55, that's not that bad either. Culture is not that necessary in the game. It doesn't do that much, honestly. So culture is not very strong. So this isn't even a big deal. And look at that, 1% per point. So you get to, let's say you get to 10 on happiness. So you get minus 1% science, right? Minus 5% culture, and you get like 10% or 20%, whatever, city growth and outpost growth. That's it. You can be at minus 10 and get only that. And the problem with this is that you can't appreciate it mentally as you see this. How can you process this information? Minus 2%, minus 4%, minus 6%. This, although it scales very slowly and predictably, it is not appreciated or appreciable by your brain as it's happening. You can't really feel like, okay, that's enough. You can't really think about it. Now you know that if you're negative 30, you probably should care about that. Or if you're negative 20, but I've played many hours, and for me it's just kind of like, okay, when my science starts getting to minus 5% or minus 10%, I should probably care about this. But honestly, there's nothing interesting about this. You don't see it you don't see unhealth wreaking havoc in your cities. You just get these minor things that are not interactive and that are just boring. They're like, ooh, please stop expanding, It's like a slap on the wrist. This is a slap on the wrist. And that's not what unhealth should be. Unhealth should have serious repercussions. And none of these are serious. Even here, look, this production is penalized. Like, what? This is not even that big of a deal compared to Civ 5. So, again, this goes up into the whole issue of plus 1 here, minus 1 here, in terms of bonuses. The Civ Beyond Earth is all about bonuses, and maybe they just hurried up and they were like, okay, we don't have time to make a good game. Let's just not that they don't have time to make a good game, but they don't have time to make a better system, so they just made this. Maybe they'll change it. I hope they do. I personally can't imagine anybody in their right mind thinking this is the best way to do this. In any way of it. The only bonus with this is it's predictable. Again, it's predictable, but the problem with it is it doesn't have an impact, a significant impact, and it doesn't have a significant impact at a meaningful point. So I'm really not a big fan of this, and I mean, and especially the positive part. Look at this: 1 to 5, you get nothing at all. So being in 1 to 5 is just basically like, congratulations, you're not unhealthy. There's nothing here, so immediately you get nothing. Like, I would say 5, do cutoffs of like 5 or 15, 25. Like, give some bonuses. I mean, honestly, being a bigger empire is already powerful. So if these things are just giving you so little of a bonus, it's almost like going for health is just not worth it at all. So trying to have a small healthy empire is not that helpful, especially considering how little these negatives are. So I would like to see something dynamic, something interesting, something with cutoffs, something with real effects onto your society to help with the immersion of the game. If things happen to your society, you can feel like, wow, I feel bad for these people. I've caused a plague on them or something like that. You could actually feel like you're playing a society instead of just a game of min-max or maximize this output, minimize that. That's not that exciting. I mean, at that point, you're just playing, some sort of micromanagement spreadsheet game, and I don't think this is what we imagined when we saw the trailer for Civ Beyond Earth. Now let's look at the Civ 5 happiness system. Okay. So again, the things to notice is impactful cutoffs, and it's tied to the map, right? The luxuries and positive levels are significantly rewarded, right? So you go up, and the fact of the matter is, the more you get in happiness, the more golden ages you get, and then you get that massive bonus, right? And then on top of that, there are things such as the social policies, which the more happiness you get, the more culture you get, the more science you can get, things like that. Those kinds of bonuses. I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly what they are, but it's something along those lines. So you get golden ages out of it. Later, you can get again like excess happiness, making additional things, helping you with additional like culture or whatever, or science. So yeah, happiness has a very real impact on the game, and you want to be pretty happy because those golden ages are extremely helpful. And every happiness is taken into account, and then it gives you a meaningful bonus, a golden age that you can see coming. So I love that. I love just looking at the counter and be like, okay, I'm about to hit a golden age. I'm about to get a lot of money. I'm about to be able to do this, and that. Like, it changes the game up, and it switches things up. So I think that they need to bring back like a long-term impact on health. Okay, and the other thing is the impactful cutoffs. So you see, like, you'd get at the beginning from like 1 to 10, you wouldn't get anything like too terrible. Yeah, look at here. So below 0 is unhappy. Food surplus to be reduced by 75%. That's massive. Okay. And then there are additional effects, which I'm not sure exactly right now. I believe it's production or something like that, or maybe that's here. Anyways, yeah, then -10, very unhappy, doesn't grow at all, so suffers a production penalty and receives a nasty combat penalty. So you can see that these kinds of things are very impactful on your society. And then from -20, you're going to revolt. Cities just, it gets terrible. I've had a lot of cities flip in the late game because of tourism and everything. So you can see how these are things you definitely want to avoid. Look at that, -10, -20. Beyond Earth goes to like -55 or -70 or whatever without having like meaningful impacts like this. So these are important. You can have an idea of how you're doing in terms of happiness. So it's you have to pay attention to this, and it's meaningful and it's impactful, and you can understand it easily. And then it's tied to luxury resources, which again brings in the conflict. You want to stay happy, you have to fight over this resource or get it first. So the happiness system is very involved in the game, and helps you make those meaningful decisions. Okay, and list plus and minuses. So the problem is there are too many things that just focus on +1 that, +2 this. This is like +10% food, plus I forgot 10% science when happy or when healthy. It's a bunch of just plus this, plus that, plus this, plus that, plus this, plus that. It's not very interesting or involving. And this is, I use the virtue tree. It's not the only thing, but because it's the greatest example of it. Everything is just about small bonuses here and there, and I don't think it's interesting. Not only that, but it's not actually that balanced and Beyond Earth. So here's that as well. But on all these extra bonuses are just plus this, plus that, plus this, plus that, plus this, plus that. And it's spammed everywhere. Now, I'm not against these being bonuses, okay? I'm not necessarily against these being bonuses, but I am against the individual ones that you click in here not having anything interesting. Nothing is interesting in here. Except for this one, Free Settler. Okay, that's interesting. Right? Free Affinity Point, that's kind of interesting, not that much, but it's something. So you see, the majority of them are just bonuses, and that's just not interesting. I want more interactivity. I want something in here that unlocks a building that's helpful. I'd like something in science that, I don't know, unlocks a great scientist of sorts that can do something. I want something meaningful in here. Something meaningful within these that you can unlock. And keep the edges to bonuses, because there are too many bonuses in this game, and some of them need to be cut out. A great way to do this is through making the virtue tree actually interesting. Maybe even adding a 5th tree that you could do that. That would be interesting as well, but let's not get into that. That's quite complicated. But yes, again, virtues, affinity bonuses, tax, all that stuff, all just give you bonuses and bonuses and bonuses. That's just not fun. Nor is it interactive. Alright, then the spy system. So here's a Civ 5 spy system. Just a couple pictures of that. And a picture of the covert operations, as they call it, or spy system in Beyond Earth. Now, what do we see here again? Oh, counterintelligence. Okay, that's in both. Right? Rigging election. Wow, this is interesting and interactive because you can either rig it, and you can interact with the city-states on the map, and you can do a coup. So you have the decision: do I do a coup and risk this guy's life, or do I just safely keep rigging the election until I get to the point where I want to be? Right? You can also put them in counterintelligence. You can also make these guys diplomats. What do you have here? Steal A, steal B, steal C, steal D. One special operation that almost never happens and is difficult to get to, and that everybody knows is coming. And then the city flip, which is even harder to get to. So the majority, again, is stealing. Not very interesting. Civ 5 also has the spying tied to the World Congress, so you can see how you work on spying on city-states and turn them to your side, or you send people as diplomats to other countries, and if they like you, they might vote for you on something. So there are many things, if you actually sit down and think about it, there are many things you can do, and you move your spies around, and you feel like you're actually plotting. You feel like you're allocating your different spies to different areas to make a meaningful change around the world. But in BE, you can't send them to the stations to do anything. The dirty bomb is rarely used. Like these kinds of late game things are difficult to get to, and they're not that interesting because they're all kind of the same thing, in a way that you just screw over one city, and that's like again, yeah, the same thing, and it's just a lot of stealing this and stealing that, and there's nothing very interesting in the Beyond Earth covert ops. Okay, lack of unit variation. This is the last one. So Civ 5 has the unique units, and Beyond Earth has the sponsor unique units. So, or does not have sponsor unique units, which is really disappointing. Now, obviously, I don't expect them to have like some sort of unit that the sponsor can use throughout the game, but it would be nice to get something early game that everybody has, kind of represents who they are in a way, and then disappears later on. At least that would give them some flavor early on. And then in Civ 5 you have unique units throughout the game. It's interesting. They're they're a power spike. You can think about them and use them later, and gain an advantage out of them. Civ 5 has the helicopter, which wasn't used because it wasn't that strong necessarily, but not because it was a unit that didn't make any sense necessarily. It just was not that strong, as what most people would think of it, anyways. And we also have bombers. So we get the bomber-jet interaction, the interception / bomber. Like you gotta get the kind of balance, like do I keep jets here? Do I keep making bombers? All that stuff. Here you only have jets. That's extremely boring. It's just jets and more jets and more jets. That's not fun. It's not interesting. You don't have to balance your units. It's simplified and oversimplified, so it's boring. Then we have a machine. And on top of that, we don't have the anti-air. So here we have machine guns and the ranged foot soldier. And then in Civ Beyond Earth, you have the ranged soldier, but you don't have that kind of machine gun type unit in the base roster, anyways. So that's fairly boring stuff. Again, dumbed down. Then here we have the anti-air unit, and we have no anti-air. Again, making air combat even less interesting than it already is. Then we have generals and admirals. So here we have no generals, no admirals. I mean, they tried to replace great people with satellites. So I see how maybe things could get overcomplicated, but even then, I don't think they'd be a bad thing. And the point of not having them there is, again, you want to be different. Beyond Earth wants to be different, but not at the cost of being worse. You can be different in a few points where it matters, and keep the winning. Keep the winning formula of Civ 5 and improve on it. But removing things and dumbing it down is not the best way to do it. That's my opinion. So then we have multiple boats. We have like 2 regular boats and like a sub. Here we have 1 boat. So I mean, I don't need to say anything else about that. There's no interesting gameplay there. And then we have Civ 5. We have nukes and guided missiles. Here we just have the individual affinity units. And yeah, that's That's it. And some of them are the same as other units, except they were slightly different. Which I enjoy some of the unique units, but I don't think that it's enough, and I think that it's not as interesting as it could be. Yeah, that's my opinion. It's not as interesting as it could be, and a lot of them are just like better at a couple things, like what are they called? The battle suits are better like at coming in earlier and giving you an earlier power spike, but then they have different bonuses, but that's about it. So I feel like, yeah, really getting these units is okay, but they're not interesting. They don't add that much variability as one might hope. And they come in really late too, and by the time they come in, sometimes the game's pretty much over. So it doesn't even matter for some of them. So yeah, basically Civ 5 has more types of combat you can do between units because of all the interactions. This one does not. So. Alright, here is the last slide we have. On the next video, we're discussing Rising Tide. And here's a picture from the intro video. I'm really looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this point from the second that I actually started doing this. I saw the Rising Tide trailer and I started getting really excited on talking about why Beyond Earth failed and all this other stuff. So I'm looking forward to discussing this. I'm going to play it again a little bit more, get a fresh idea on the newest patch and everything. And I think I'm going to go from there, but there'll be more later. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks again for all the comments. I appreciate kind of seeing what you guys think about this. And I'll be back in a little bit to discuss Rising Tide. Have a good one.